Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to EIG's Fireside Chat discussion with our guest experts from the industry, Danny Kaplan from SMC Data and Greg Schlegel from the Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium. We are looking forward to an interactive discussion with each and every one of you. Thank you again for joining us. This is our 58th webinar on evolving the resilient enterprise. We appreciate you taking the time to attend today's fireside chat, and we hope that your family are healthy and safe. This is our third webinar in the series of supply chain visibility, and the name of this webinar is Balancing Push-Pull Inventory, Implementing End-to-End Visibility, 3 Best Practices to Achieve Supply Chain Inventory Balance. And I have to confess, we don't have 3 best practices. We have a lot of best practices to share with you today. Probably quite a number. So pick out 3 that best fit you and let us know what you think are the best practices that you can implement in your organization. Enhance International. Ethos is people, process, data, and technology. So we're going to try to cover all those 3 perspectives in this very important space as inventory is growing because of the pandemic and people are buying like crazy and overbuying, and therefore inventory is increasing because of this dilemma, and we're having shortages. So we're living both sides of this bullwhip event that we're living together. And so we're expecting that over the next 3 to 6 months, things aren't going to settle down. We expect them to get more disruptive. We're just at the beginning of this. So we wanted to share with you our best practices in this space. My name is Jim DeVries, President of Enhance International Group. Enhance International Group is an exchange of passionate experts that transform your business to provide self-generating and self-funding results. We have over 50 consultants, consulting companies, and SaaS thought leader providers that have been vetted as best in class. And Greg and Danny represent 2 of those companies. EIG serves as that master integrator to provide you access to the best and brightest companies, and we act as a Swiss Army knife. Our team is dedicated to empowering your organization's workforce by leveraging EIG's partners' tenured thought leadership expertise, and our goal is to meet or exceed your expectations with customized, predictable, sustainable, and repeatable 90-day self-funding programs, providing you the competitive advantage. Danny, a few words of introduction for yourself.
We are a supply chain software company. We have ERP software for manufacturing, distribution of food in the mid-market.
Thank you, Danny. And Greg?
You bet. This is Greg Schlegel, founder of the Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium. We'll talk a little bit more about the consortium in a minute. I've spent 8 years as a supply chain executive consultant for IBM across multiple industries. Spent 35 years as a supply chain exec for several Fortune 100 companies. I've taught supply chain management at 6 different universities here in the States. And back in the late 90s, I was president of the organization called Apex, now known as ASCM. Jim?
Thanks, Greg. And just a reminder to please use the chat window to provide your questions during this fireside chat. And with that, Danny will give a little introduction.
This is my background, going back to 1980, meeting the IBM executive in 1985 regarding the IBM distribution software. In 92, I took a company through M&A to $6 to $45 million. And in 94, I was written in the Trade magazine. I work on long-term relationship with my clients, addressing the issues, business and personal.
Thank you, Danny. And Greg?
Yeah, the consortium is About 30 companies on the right. That makes up about 1,500 supply chain risk professionals around the globe. These companies bring tools, techniques, and solutions to help us as a consortium identify, assess, mitigate, and manage supply chain risks. On the left, you can see what we provide: 2 online education courses with a certificate, virtual training like this. We do about 3 webinars a week, or a month, I'm sorry. Classroom training, boy, remember that face-to-face? We're hoping that comes back as academics and educators. We provide certificates and certifications in this space. We do risk assessment, awareness, mitigation. We bring best practices in this space from our book. We coach companies. We build supply chain risk war rooms. We bring solutions to do heavy lifting. And we're very excited that on the bottom, we have 2 new online assessment tools. One is a supply chain management readiness assessment, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. And the other is a prescriptive online supply chain risk and resiliency 90-day assessment tool. So that's who we are, and that's what we do. Jim?
Thanks, Greg. And just a little bit more background on EIG. We, as we mentioned before, we work on delivering self-sustaining growth. And we have modeled this, our team has modeled this with 2 wheels of linking strategy to execution. So we've all heard of the saying that we're only as strong as our weakest link. We take it as a step further to the following analogy of the bicycle, and the drive pedal on the right representing strategy, how you get there, and execution wheel are being represented in the rear wheel. One strong drive from the pedal results in many rotations of execution as long as you're pointed in the right direction. Therefore, the drive chain are the tactics that link you to it. So very often when we talk about planning and supply chain, we're trying to link strategy to tactics to execution. And that's paramount within our model and in the ethos of all of our partners. And so a strongly linked strategy to execution ecosystem results in positive momentum for the company, its employees, customers, suppliers, and stockholders. And quoting Einstein, life is like a bicycle. To keep your balance, you need to keep on moving. So that's this flows perfectly into the theme of today's webinar. So let's go ahead and get started. As if you've joined our previous webinars that are on the EIG website, you're welcome to view those at any time. We started off with implementing an end-to-end visibility to minimize your business disruptions. And the second webinar was all about demand cadence, customer demand cadence, and how to build that. Today's webinar, of course, is balancing the push-pull inventory. And then our fourth webinar will focus on the supplier end of things. So that's on June 23rd coming up. So you'll see that event coming up very soon. So please do feel free to look on the EIG website for our past webinars. Very good discussion and insights there. With that, Greg is going to share with us the latest street buzz.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Jim. We thought we'd share this with you to prepare for the body of the presentation. This is what we call the latest street buzz. It's kind of a build chart on the right-hand side. This comes from Supply Chain Brain and some of their partners. It's fairly recent. And the big kicker is C-suite's top concerns include supply chain labor and cybersecurity. We wanted to share that with you. Take a look on the right-hand side. 69% of the respondents in this global survey said a majority of CEOs are concerned about broken supply chains. And on the left, they made a statement of condition after the survey. The C-suite is a bundle of nerves this winter. A new survey shows that 72% of CEOs are worried about losing their jobs in 2020. Why? Because of business interruptions. So we thought that was pretty compelling and we wanted to share that with you early on. Jim, back to you.
Thanks, Greg. And we'll share with you some additional stats that we've recently seen out there. A lot of folks talking about the supply chain disruptions of the bullwhip effect starting to take place right now. And some good stats here. 43% of small businesses don't even track inventory, and 21% don't have the inventory that they need, don't report it. However, those who do track the inventory, the most common method is using Quickbooks at 24% for small business owners. So there may be time to move from Quickbooks to other software, and Danny certainly provides one of those alternatives, a very good and excellent alternative, especially for the small, medium enterprises out there. And this is, if you don't track it, you don't know it. And if you don't know it, you don't know how to manage it. And before you know it, you're going to have inflated inventory. You're going to be buying the wrong things, overbuying, and your supply chain is going to be, your warehouse is going to overfill. So with that, any comments on that, guys?
Not a pretty sight.
Not a pretty sight, no. But nonetheless, it's, I mean, that's 2020. So you can imagine where we're at today for these companies, because, you know, I think, Greg, you always mentioned that, you know, within 18 months of a event, 18 to 24 months, people are going to start feeling it. So not having this set up in 2020, these companies are going to be really hurting. And, you know, we certainly have within the network with Danny Software and our 50, 80 consultant companies that we interact with as part of our consortiums can really help the clients out there. Danny, I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
Yes, if you're not able to track your inventory, your production will come to a standstill. Your orders will be canceled, and if you ship them late, you get a fancy word called chargeback. You build 100 grand, you get paid 80 grand. That's today's new reality of the supply chain.
Absolutely. With that, we're gonna start off with a little bit of neural networking, also from our friends at Disney, so to speak. This is a cartoon that we thought up as along the lines of this pandemic, is that very often sales and procurement may be both trying to drive the bus, so to speak, and then finance is in there, hanging in there, trying to look at the engine on what's under the hood. And then meanwhile, the customer's hanging out the caboose. So we just thought we'd throw this cartoon out there just to kind of drive the dialogue. Is, do you find yourself that are sales and procurement aligned? Is finance aligned? And where does that leave the customer for you? Greg and Danny, comments?
Jim, I don't see the cartoon, just so you're aware.
Wow.
I don't know if it's me or I just thought.
I will reshare.
Yeah.
Is it sharing now?
Yeah, there you go. Wasn't sure of the audience. Sorry for the dogs.
Yeah, no worries. We can't hear them. So I'll go through the cartoon one more time. You can see it kind of self-explanatory as far as sales and procurement, and not being aligned, and who's driving the bus for the company. Is it sales or procurement? And very often it's sales, but then procurement is less, maybe not knowing what's going on. And then finance is trying to clean it up and making sure that the bus keeps moving and the customer is hanging out at the end. Any comments on that?
Mm-hmm. Well, it just, my first flush reaction to the cartoon is, being a practitioner, is that, you know, companies have certain attitudes, have certain propensities in terms of who is driving the organization, what discipline. I'm not saying it's right or there's a right or wrong, but
Right.
when you have push-pull, using that term loosely, and no one knows exactly who's driving the bus, that causes a lot of consternation and perhaps even missed objectives. So just a thought.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Danny?
On the sell end, you have to know what to buy. Because when just-in-time was available, you call the vendor, get the best price, ship it to the warehouse, or drop to the customer. Today is a different reality. Supply inventory is limited. So regardless of what the sale tells you, you have to know what items are sold at what ratio, so you know what to buy. You cannot buy everything. So you have to be very diligent that you buy the right product, because you might not get what you want.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we can talk about this for quite a while, but expect your lead times to change over these next 3 to 6 months. What you thought you could get in 3 days might take you 3 weeks. So there's going to be shortages going up and down. So as the supply chain settles out. So with that, we'll just move on into the agenda. And our agenda is how does push and pull inventory impact your supply chain? Then we'll discuss linking ERP to your supply chain. And then it's leveraging, the third bullet is leveraging ERPs to enable balanced push pull inventory capabilities. And then Danny will be sharing us with some inventory management success story that he has led, as well as some of the ERP benefits that VA offers. With that, we're going to start off with just some definitions from our friends at this from ASCM, formerly Apex, and these are classic definitions. And I think it's pretty important when we're talking about push-pull that everybody's grounded on these concepts. One is postponement, and that is when your product design or supply chain strategy that deliberately delays final differentiations of a product until the latest possible time in the process. This shifts product differentiation closer to the consumer to reduce anticipatory risk of producing the wrong product. The practice eliminates the excess finished goods in the supply chain, and it's sometimes called delayed differentiation. So postponement is a very common way to deal with the push-pull, is moving things off to the side as it shows there. The push-pull boundary, that's that decoupling point at which a system changes from being driven by a forecast to be actually driven by the actual customer demand. And then the push system is made up of 3 things: production, material control, and distribution. And under production, we have the production of items at times required by given schedule planned in advance, and material control, the issuing of material according to a given schedule of issuing material to a job at its start time, and then distribution, a system for replenishing field warehouse inventories where replenishment decisions is centralized, usually at the manufacturing. So that gives you a little bit of some basic definitions, and then there's just a few more definitions here, and then we can get into good discussion. So a pull signal is any signal that indicates when to produce or transport items in a pull replenishment system. For example, a just-in-time production control systems like a Kanban card that's used to pull the signal to replenishment parts to the using in the operation. So you see this often in manufacturing, where you have things staged and you have a card that tells you when you need to replenish, so that you never have a break in the line. And you can do that throughout all your manufacturing and your warehousing operations, as you stage to create product, as you stage to final quarantine, and then final shipping. So having pull signals throughout to say that you're ready to move things is a very key aspect. So the pull system has these three perspectives on production, material, and distribution. So for pull systems, the production of items only as demanded for use or to replace those taken by the use. So you referenced the pull signal that we just discussed. And then on material control is the withdrawal of inventory as demanded by using operations. Material is not issued until a pull signal comes from the user. So you're waiting for that pull signals to come through. In the distribution world, a system for replenishing the field warehouse inventories where the replenishment decisions are made at the field warehouse itself, not at the central warehouse. So in the central warehouse, you're going to be pushing. In the field warehouse, when you need it, you're going to pull that material. And then the last definition we'll talk about pull through distributions is those supply chain activities that are started by the customer, by the consumer, instead of the manufacturing pushing products. It's a pull through the distribution of the consumer's purchase items. So you're forecasting and you're estimating how are the consumers consuming the products and making sure that you're having enough product to meet that demand. Effectively, the consumer is actually pulling the products to the store based on demand. So do you want a pull system? Do you want a push system? There's advantages of both. It depends if you're make to stock, if you're making things to stock and it's high consumption, or you're making product that is customized to order. When it's customized to order, these push-pull, there's different theories about exactly how to do it. The most important thing is for your company is that you understand these concepts and you have a clear strategy of exactly what you're doing with push-pull. There's no right or wrong for everybody. And depending on where you are in your evolution of growth as a company, you need to decide what is that push-pull balance. With that, Greg's got a great case study. Greg?
You bet. Jim got you grounded on a couple of definitions. We'll go through a couple of compelling push-to-pull stories. One we have is Dell. Everyone knows Dell. Early in the 1990s, and this is a build slide, early in the 1990s, just like IBM, they were pushing product out to the field stores, if you can remember that, using a forecasted demand, making purple, black, orange, you name it, different color, different configuration, PCs and servers. What did they have? A lot of finished goods, inventory everywhere. And at this time, their cash conversion cycle was about average for the computer industry. That was on average in the early 90s. It was about 120 days. And we're going to talk to you and give you the definition of cash conversion in a minute, but it's a great measurement. And so at this point in time in the early 90s, they decided to change from a push supply chain system to a pull system. What did that mean? Take a look. This is the switch. Essentially, Dell turned into what? A configure to order manufacturer. What does that mean? That means Dell basically stopped making finished goods before the order and began the postponement process. All right. You learned about postponement in the last couple of slides from Jim. So they were exercising postponement. What did that do? That reduced their highest value and most risky inventory type, a la finished goods. And then finally, in this switch, Dell leveraged the new internet. Remember, this is late 90s, early 2000. They used the new internet to allow customers, us, to configure their own PCs and servers and pay with a credit card. There's more to this story. All right. In the mid 90s, the outcome of that switch looks like this. They used cash conversion cycle as a measure of supply chain performance excellence and risk management. What does it do? It measures the duration between purchase of inventory, raw material, and collection of accounts receivable from your customer. It's three simple elements: inventory days of supply on hand plus days to collect accounts receivable minus days to grab or to pay accounts payable. So it's inventory days plus receivables minus payables. What was the outcome? All right, take a look. Dell's cash conversion went from, you can see it on the right-hand side in the bottom of the graph, it went from about 100 to 50 and ultimately ended up in a negative minus 45 days. Totally a demand-driven inventory approach. Dell became a bank, meaning they would get their money from their customers at the credit card within 5 or 6 days, and they would have 90 days or more before they had to pay their suppliers for their raw material. It took IBM and other competitors 3 years to change from a push to a pull, and some competitors out there during this time didn't make the change, all right? And I know this for a fact because I worked at IBM during this time in the personal computer division, all right? So we wanted to share that with you. We have another story real quick. Zara, all right? Zara is a fast fashion exemplar, all right? They make retail apparel, basically for women, a few men. It's high touch, it's high trust. Here's a profile of how Zara runs demand-driven supply chain. They pull based on the customer's requirements. They do demand generation, high touch. We call that high touch, meaning they talk to the customer every day. They have simple store layouts. They rely on real-time communication, and we have much more on the next slide for you in terms of observations. From a marketing point of view, they're called the exemplar of fast fashion. Sometimes they don't like that name. Their target markets are folks 18 to 45. They have merchandising across the retail sector. They're kind of European based, all right, that's okay. They've developed trendy disposable fashion for their customers. Their promotion is mainly word of mouth. Now it's iPhones, iPads, closer to the customer, and they are demand driven with what? Small production lot sizes. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Next. From a supply point of view, they have an integrated cluster approach in terms of manufacturing. 1,500 suppliers, 750 of those are within the Spanish cluster, Spain, Portugal, Morocco. You can see that on the insert on the left. 85% of production is in their own plant. They keep some capacity available to handle seasonal, I'll say, increases and decreases. The basics are outsourced from raw material and so forth, low cost, low risk. The majority of production is still in Europe, but it's changing. And they support, here's the key, they support 17 buying seasons, not like their competitors where they have 1 or 2 seasons. They support 17 buying seasons with small lot sizes. You can do the math. We got a couple more observations. In operations, they adhere to just in time. They leverage postponement. Again, we said their cash conversion is minus 45 days. They are a bank. They manage this supply chain through centralized control, through a command center. We call it a supply chain risk management war room. They have 200 designers, very flexible in terms of fast fashion, change on a dime. All right, the allocation, they do allocation demand across their stores. 85% of the sales they produce are at full list price. They have the highest margins in the retail apparel sector. everyone is trying to copy their supply chain. As we told you, they do 10 days of production that support 17 seasons. The technology they use is state-of-the-art 5G at the moment. We had an opportunity to assess their supply chain back in 2015. That's in the insert on the left, and we have 2 more slides for Zara. Some conclusions, and there's a picture of their multi-million-dollar supply chain risk management control room. They're pretty resilient. They're getting better every day. They've decreased their inventory. Why? Because they are a demand pull. They use postponement just in time, small lot sizes. They hardly ever have obsolete inventory because all their batches are sold by the time it gets to the store. Operations War Room, we talked about that. In 2020, Gartner here in the States ranks companies' supply chains every year. Back in 2020, they were number 9. 21, they ended up being number 2. All right. Information technology, we'll talk about that in a minute. And essentially, their strategy is agility, remain agile, flexible, and view risk as an opportunity. They're innovative. They make informed risk decisions. They leverage risk as a competitive advantage. And one more, just to close the loop here. This is what they looked like back in 2015. We used our supply chain risk assessment methodology on Zara. They obviously, you can see that they essentially were hovering around the green circle, which is indicative of where exemplar companies operate in terms of supply chain maturity. Essentially, they had one outlier. You can see it on the right, information systems. That outlier, what did they mean? What did they have? At this time, they had over 25 1970-like systems cobbled together supporting their organization. And they were an exemplar at this time, all right? Because they were innovative, agile, and adaptable, they took their free cash coming from being a bank, having a minus 45-day cash conversion cycle. They took that free cash and spent multi-million dollars, as we showed you, to build a 24/7, 365 supply chain risk management war room. So to us, pretty compelling, and we'll talk more about the supply chain maturity assessment tool in a minute. Back to you, Jim.
Yeah, and I think, Greg, I love this story because it shows that anybody can do this. Even with having cobbled together systems, they were still able to create this pool system that you described here. So I think that, a lot of folks say we're small, we can't do this. Well, I mean, Zara is obviously bigger, but they did it without the gravitas of being a Fortune 100 company, right? Or a Fortune 500, or how big are they, Greg?
They're pretty big. I'd say they're at the moment, maybe they're probably a Fortune 1000, on the big screen. But it's the attitude of being agile, flexible, and willing to take informed risk and improving their supply chain processes every day. Like I said, every single competitor in their space is attempting to replicate. They're going, because every other competitor is still in the push supply chain inventory mode. And it's a huge disparity between them and the rest of their sector. Pretty compelling.
Very compelling. Love the stories. Both IBM and Zara are fantastic stories. Anybody can do it. Dell did it. You can do it. So we hope we took away some simple lessons there that don't think that just because you're small or because of your size, you can't do it. You can do it. We just wanted to make sure we got that message across. And so now we're going to talk about what is an ERP and linking it to your supply chain and where does it all fit in, because we did come up with another ASCM chart that we adapted from ASCM and put it into this format. And it does look like a lot of boxes here on the screen, but it's pretty important. If we start from the top around business planning, that's something we all do at some periodicity, whether it's yearly or monthly or quarterly. And tactical planning is generally done at a monthly basis and quarterly basis, and then operational planning. And the MRP and the ERPs are then supporting that. So when you hit MRP, you hear material resource planning, you often hear that. But, and then you have your demand here on the left, sales marketing, supply chain, your master production scheduling, your rough cut capacity planning. And we're not going to get into every one of these elements, but it's important that you understand that this is what it takes to run a business. And this structure has been around for well over 20, 30, 40 years as the structure that you need to run your company. Now, all these modules have different capabilities. We're not going to get into that, but it is all the things that you need to drive your financials, which are on your left of this, and to drive your business, to know that you're solvent and that you're trying to drive that cash conversion cycle, and having that data readily available in real time is very important to running your business. And of course, you're building this database of information, and then using that database from the bill of material through history, suppliers, all your transactional histories, your routings, what you did, where you did it, how you did it, is important in leveraging that data to make better database decisions in real time. And obviously you want to be able to report these things out in real time. So when you're running your business, you should have a thorough understanding of that ERP that's running in the background of your company, if you have one. If you don't have one, these are the things that you will be looking for. Greg, Danny, some comments on this?
Jim, you have to put my video in it. My video is blocked.
We can't hear you, Danny. You're
my
not...
video is blocked. You blocked my video.
No, yeah, go ahead and I'll start your video, but
okay. I'm sorry, what's the question?
Do you have any comments on this slide?
Yes, you need to have an integrated supply chain system of manufacturing, distribution, and food in order to be able to run your business, because in today's reality of inventory shortages, unless you have a good handle on it, you will run out of inventory. The days of just-in-times are over.
Great, thanks, Danny. Greg, some thoughts on this? You're on mute.
It does look to the average supply chain professional, ERP is pretty expansive. All right, there's a lot to go through. I guess our experience over 40 years is, how do you eat the elephant? You do one bite at a time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we just want to get a little grounding here. So that's I would say our second key best practice to share. And Greg is going to share with us the readiness assessment.
You bet. We think there's a lot of synergy between this tool and ERP and end-to-end visibility. As Jim profiled, you can tell ERP is quite expansive. Because it touches and enhances almost every department and discipline in your organization, especially supply chain. So with that said, we've taken 30 years of supply chain management experience, 12 years of risk management experience, and developed a supply chain management readiness assessment tool. And this tool basically provides two assessments. First, you can see there are 13 tenets in our point of view that make up an end-to-end supply chain, kind of analogous to ERP from end to end. The star chart you're looking at is a maturity model. and it depicts how mature a company's supply chain processes are today, where the lower the number in the chart, the more mature your processes are. As you go through, there's 100 questions. As you go through the questions of discovery, you can see a company's response. That's the black lines. Remember, the farther away the responses are from the center of the graph, the less mature the supply chain process is. Secondarily, we develop risk levels that you can see within the maturity model. You can see the green circle. We talked about that because we used it at Zara. That's the exemplar circle that denotes where best-in-class companies tend to operate from a supply chain maturity point of view. The yellow circle denotes companies that are moving forward, and the red denotes are what we call the ring of fire. Any response near the ring of fire says that that supply chain process is very immature, which leads to a much higher inherent risk within your supply chain. And finally, on the upper left is a best-in-class rating that a company receives within this free Tier 1 assessment. This tool is free. It's out there for your evaluation. We have 3 additional tiers of sophistication and analysis, but that's for another webinar. Back to you, Jim.
Thanks, Greg. So again, this is a free tool to give you an idea, you and your team, an idea of where you're at today. With that, we wanted just to discuss, because of the ERP deployment approach, what is the best approach? Some people might say the best approach is to start with supplier and inventory visibility and focus on that part of the ERP implementation. As Greg mentioned, taking one bite at a time. Then another approach is to focus on customer demand, is to start with demand forecasting and build it out, supply to match demand, and connect forecasting of demand and supply to minimize inventory. That's another approach. Again, there's no right or wrong approach. Another approach is a bottoms-up approach, where you start the MRP at your operational level at that 24 to 48 hour window, and build out planning from a daily, weekly, and 6-week cadence to monthly and yearly, and connect demand and forecasting. And then what we would espouse, but generally organizations have a hard time swallowing, is actually doing an end-to-end ecosystem approach to evaluate your supply chain maturity, processes, controls. Again, every culture is different. Every organization is different. We just throw this out to say, to say there are different approaches to do this. Generally, the crawl, walk, run approach is what we espouse. As one of our favorite slides here, or images, think big, start small, and act fast. So you want to build on your success when implementing an ERP solution. Greg, Danny, comments on this?
Yeah, this is Greg. There is no right or wrong, and it does depend on your culture, your maturity in the supply chain, your vision, your funding. There's a heck of a lot of what we call independent X variables that essentially drive how you will implement a full ERP system. So again, just no right or wrong, but it's a one-off based on all those independent X variables. Just so you know.
Danny, any comments?
It's all good and fine in a normal reality when just-in-time was available. But with today's reality, you have to evaluate very carefully which way you go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And with that, I think we're going to switch over to leveraging ERPs to enable balancing push, and Danny will be leading this section. So Danny, go ahead.
You have to base basically people base their demand on the sale, and they go by the customer buying, but the whole supply chain sales changed from buying in the store in a shopping mall to now people ordering on because of the COVID online and the internet. So it's a whole different reality now of demand and supply. Next, Jim.
Yeah.
You can forecast your sale based on what you think will happen, but the reality is the computer dominates it, because being locked up for 2 years, the whole technology changed for people ordering on the phone or on the PC, on the laptop, and rather than going to the shopping mall to buy, they're buying on the phone now or on online like Amazon style. So it's a whole different reality now of self-forecasting. The MRP is now, it's a whole different situation. You have to do it based on customer sale, support, demand, but you have to evaluate very carefully because we're dealing in a new reality now, and the car manufacturer is a good example. They miss the chip, they can't finish the car. Even if they finish the car, the left mirror is missing. So the supply availability has become #1 issue now. Next, Jim. Purchasing system become a very important factor now, more important than ever. With container price hitting $25,000 and limited supply, you have to very carefully know what your net inventory availability is, when to buy and how much to buy and whom to buy it from. And keep track on the landed cost because it varies from shipment to shipment. Next, Jim, please. You have to keep track on your efficiency of the material level. If you don't have enough material level and your material planning is not correct, you end up joining Toyota, Honda, and Mercedes Club, where they run out of parts and they close the plants.
I'm sorry.
The warehouse become a huge important issue today. You have to know what you have in stock and where to find it. Technology is very important. With this VAI software, we allow you to manage the warehouse activity, find it, eliminate orders, and do a cycle count on a weekly basis. So if item is misplaced, we find it immediately, rather than closing the warehouse once a year and finding the misplaced inventory then. Next, Jim. How do you balance your push and pull inventory to meet your client? Where do you start? You need to leverage your inventory now based on what you produce and what the customer buys. It's a very important factor. VAI is integrated software for manufacturing, distribution, and food. If you have an outdated software, that's the story. That's what you look at. Misplaced item, inventory found that when you take it once a year, and in the meantime, it became outdated, and you cannot sell it, or you have to go consolidate it. That's.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Jim. It's okay. Purchasing is a very important factor. You must know what you have in stock based on your own inventory availability and what you allocate to future orders. Some of them might be 6-8 months from now. So if you have 1,000 items and you allocate 500 items, you really have 500 net available. You need to know what your first moving items, because you cannot buy everything now. So you have to very carefully decide, and the VAI software enables you to know what to buy and where to buy. And in fact, it has e-camera software It enables the customer to buy on the phone or the online, and the rep can download the customer information to a smartphone and tell the customer, item A, B, C, you sold very well. Item D was not a good sale, you better not buy it again. And the rep become a consultant now rather than a sales rep. Next, Jim. This is the benefits of integrated ERP software. The VI software is for manufacturing, distribution of food, for mid-market. In other words, a manufacturer can be a distributor, and a distributor can be a manufacturer. It's all integrated. There's warehouse automation, financial, analytic, know what product to buy, when to buy, and how much to buy, and have a landed cost accuracy. A product can come at $25,000 container, $23,000 and $20,000. If you don't know what the actual landed cost is, you might sell the product at below cost price or at a low gross profit. It's a very important factor to keep track now on all those issues now.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add here, I think it sounds simple what Danny is saying, but ERPs in this space are not offering this end-to-end approach that VAI does. And in today's world, as Danny said, you need this visibility, you need the ability to forecast, you need to understand the difference between what you thought you were going to do and what you need to do in order to satisfy your customers' changing demand. And having these real-time analytics is critical to help you survive in these upcoming times. So if you're having bloated inventory, if people are running around chasing things on a regular basis, and we live in an expedited world, and we think that expedited is the way, we're not planning ahead enough. You may need expediters to some degree, but if you find that everybody's expediting, it's probably time to look at a software package such as VAI that offers this type of visibility and decision planning to help you make your company run smoother.
When just-in-time was available, people did not worry about having the inventory dropped to the warehouse or dropped to the customer. It's a different reality today.
Yeah.
This is a brand new reality. Before the COVID, the bank agreed, an insurance company agreed for you to close the warehouse once a year and fund the inventory. Today, it's a different reality. The banks are afraid the company will go out of business.
Yeah.
Therefore, you must have to be able to download your spreadsheet, the inventory or the financial, and let them know what you have in inventory, which is very accurate. If not, the bank will lower your line of credit and the insurance will raise your premium.
And if I could add to that, not only the bank, but your customers are saying, where's our inventory of what you're making for us? And they want to look at your inventory. So having this readily available is very important from both your customers who have a high demand and your bank. And customers are demanding it more, just like you're demanding it more out of your vendors to prove to you if they're going to deliver. Since we're in a supply chain, it's cascades up and down. So expect more and more requirements, not only from the banks, but from your customers. Danny?
You can go into the next slide. Basically, those are case studies of clients that have used the VAI software and managed to grow. Imperial Debt grew from $100 million to $1 billion in 10 years, and that's the cost of return. Black River have a headset for voice speak because the product does not have barcode. And Atom Harp increased was the cosmetic manufacturer by having a good MRP and ERP and capacity training, reduce reliability of $700,000 per year. Those are success stories of customers. We have three options: cloud, 90% of people buy the cloud, 10% are still, if they have a bad internet connection, prefer a server. The source code is provided, can be customized to meet your business need. Unlike other software that it's a round peg in a square hole, change your business to meet the software. At 100 users ability, you get unlimited users. In today's M&A world, you might quadruple your business and you then have to buy for additional users, and we will convert your data of the company you buy. It's integrated the software is integrated to multiple vendors, so give you more flexibility, and it's geared for the mid-market manufacturing, distribution, and food companies on its fully integrated software.
Excellent, Danny. We do have a question, and I want to get to the questions and keep those questions flowing. We have wrapped up on most of this, on all the slides, but we have a question here. It says, can Danny unpack why just in time is being replaced by just in case? We want, this person wants to have Danny's input on this particular point. Danny?
You must have just-in-time inventory now, because if you don't know what you have available after you allocate the inventory, you run into a situation of Toyota, Honda, and
You're coming in, Danny, I'm sorry, your voice is coming in and out.
The issue today is inventory availability. You must know what you're available after you allocate. If you don't know what your availability after you allocate, you will run into a production issue or ship your orders late, either they'll be canceled or get penalties.
Excellent, excellent.
This is Greg. I'll weigh in on this as well. From a risk point of view, to answer the question, we do see over the last 6 months a very big, robust discussion across all industries, talking about supply chain efficiency versus supply chain effectiveness. And it all comes down to strategy for your supply chain and your company's risk appetite. Two things. We've seen it, and it's going on essentially every day. So I just wanted to weigh in there.
Great, excellent. So if there's, we have a couple more minutes for additional questions about supply chain or anything you've heard today, and welcome your feedback on what we presented today. Hopefully you found this interesting and grounding in supply chain and ERPs and how this whole, everything fits together, from supply chain push-pull to having an ERP, and having an ERP that can help you make better decisions is a key. And as we just talked about, that balance and just-in-time, you know, what just-in-time has done to our supply chains, and it's really out of our control today, quite frankly. It's going up and down. Everybody has to participate in JIT for it to work. As soon as somebody within that streamlined supply chain stops, it becomes a bottleneck, and then everything starts cobbling up. Hopefully we've seen the worst is over in the containers. We hear that container pricing is coming down from the 2,000, 4,000 range down to lower numbers. So we are starting to see transportation come down. Now the question is, where's it going to land? Meanwhile, inflation should adjust accordingly with this new norm, but we don't know where we're going to land. And so you need to be proactive in this ever-changing world. And there's going to be surges here and there, and you need to be prepared. Greg, Danny, any other final comments?
I'll make this comment to the audience. Push-pull is a supply chain strategy, folks. As we said, there's nothing wrong with either strategy, but you, as a supply chain practitioner, you got to make the decision based on a couple things: your customer requirements, your competition, and your business objectives. We wish you all the best.
Thanks.
I have one more comment.
Great.
The days of just-in-time inventory are over, and what worked in the past will not work today. So all the ERP system that worked in the past will not work today because you're gonna face a hard reality of running out of inventory.
Excellent closing comments. And with those closing comments, I'm just going to close out with just to let you know that we do have an upcoming webinar on June 23rd, where we'll look at the supplier side, and we're going to see more disruptions on the supplier side in the next upcoming months. So we'll tackle that one on. And again, on behalf of the EIG group of 50 consulting companies and SaaS providers, we thank you. We are focused on delivering self-generating, self-sustaining growth for you and your companies. We have, as you can see, we have a good group of people here. Excellent. And I want to thank again Greg and Danny today for their excellent knowledge in this very heated subject. Thank you so much, and everyone have a great day today.